Restoring and preserving the Everglades is important not just for environmental, but also for economic reasons. The Florida economy is fueled by clean water, and that directly benefits the billions of dollars and the tens of thousands of jobs that are tied to tourism, recreation, fishing, boating, real estate, and other sectors of the economy. Embrik Eyles is here with a look at the economic benefits and drawbacks of the Everglades with a focus on one particular resource.
Sophia, each year the Everglades ecosystem contributes billions of dollars to Florida's economy, but another type of economic activity down this 11-mile road here behind me in Big Cypress National Preserve has been at the center of a controversy for decades because of the past and future environmental impacts that it could have on the entire Everglades ecosystem. When tourists picture the Everglades, they see massive alligators soaking up the hot South Florida sun, or anhinga birds perched on top of a branch, showing off their beautiful wings. But what many Floridians picture are big bags of cash. That's because each year the ecosystem generates billions of dollars for the state's economy and supports hundreds of thousands of jobs.
A lot of Floridians make a living out of this, and we all are sustained by the Everglades, both from a natural resource perspective, the water that we drink, to the economy that makes our life here possible.
One of the largest economic drivers is tourism. In 2021, Everglades National Park visitors spent over $150 million in communities that surround the park. Another sector of the economy that also relies on a healthy Everglades is the fishing industry. Each year, recreational fishing in the Everglades ecosystem generates an estimated $1.2 billion in economic output.
The recreational fishing industry here in South Florida is larger than the agricultural industry from a revenue-producing perspective.
And more than 2 miles below some of the rivers and streams where these fish live lies one of the most lucrative natural resources on the planet, oil. But for decades, oil extraction and exploration in the Everglades has faced strong opposition from many.
So our job is to make sure that we manage these activities to minimize the impact. Oil and gas is one of those activities that we have been engaging in long before the National Park Service became the steward of Big Cypress National Preserve.
And more than 80 years ago in 1941, the state of Florida supported and incentivized drilling for oil. The state passed the Oil Bonus Act, which promised to give $50,000 to the first company or individual who successfully drilled for oil in the state.
They were offering a reward for the first company that managed to do any type of successful oil extraction. So that kind of like was the start of the oil industry in Collier County and the Big Cypress Swamp area.
And just 2 years later, the Humboldt Oil Company became the first to discover oil here in Sunderland, Florida, a town just a few miles north of Big Cypress National Preserve. And the Sunderland field will become one of the most productive oil fields in the history of the state. During its peak in 1977, the field would produce close to 14,000 barrels of oil per day. And during its lifetime, almost 19 million before it was eventually abandoned by ExxonMobil. Oil exploration in the Everglades took off. People from all across the country flocked to the Sunshine State to look for liquid gold.
The next big discovery would probably be in 1972. It was the Big Cypress oil field.
And 2 years later in 1974, Washington and Tallahassee announced plans to buy more than 300,000 acres of private lands to create Big Cypress National Preserve. But the federal government wanted to save money, so they bought the rights to the land above the surface, but allowed sellers to maintain ownership of the minerals underneath the surface in the preserve.
It was a lot cheaper just to buy the surface rights instead of the mineral rights, because that would add dollars to the cost. And as a result, the preserve hired a minerals management specialist to oversee all the oil extraction and exploration within the preserve.
So what we do is that we work closely with that private mineral owner to make sure that when they engage in activities to extract the mineral, that is compatible with the purpose of the preserve, which is to protect that natural essence, that natural value that it offers.
Since the establishment of the preserve almost 50 years ago, many have called on leaders to end oil drilling in the Everglades once and for all. Local officials across South Florida strongly oppose new exploration because of how important the Everglades is to the economy.
They're not looking at the big picture. They're looking at profits. What they're not looking at is the benefit of the Everglades to all of the people that live here.
It's just crazy to think that that such a risky proposition would take place in such environmentally sensitive area, which is so vital to South Florida.
Across the nation, oil drilling is an issue that divides politicians and political parties. But in Florida, ending drilling in the Everglades is one of the few issues that has strong bipartisan support. Yet oil drilling at 2 legacy fields still produced just over 150,000 barrels of oil in 2022. For UMTV, I'm Embrik Eyles.